Hi folks, a couple of people have asked me to start doing some more fly tying videos, so here goes. I'm tying a saltwater fly tonight. This is quite an old pattern. It's a Bonefish puff. I've got a saltwater Tiemco hook in the vise. I'm using Danville's flat waxed thread. So again, my videos are not going to be high tech, so these are more for people who are new to saltwater fly fishing. So if you're an experienced tyer, you're welcome to watch, but it may not be entirely for you. So we're going to introduce this thread just short of the eye and go back approximately half the length of the shank. Again, that's the shank of a hook's from the eye to where it starts to bend. Again, a lot of people that might watch this might say, oh, okay, I knew that, but some people don't. This particular fly, you can fish it deep or shallow depending on the depth of water. You'll switch between using bead chain, or you can use dumbbell eyes, and I think the thing that I found is that depending on where you're fishing, you might want to have a couple of different weights of fly. With bead chain eyes, I just go sort of one way between the eyes, and then you'll see that offsets them, and then I go the other way, and as I pull tight they become square again, and then just repeat that until they stop moving, and then go around the base of the eyes, and this tightens up any slack. If you keep doing this until you don't see the eyes moving anymore, you know that they're rock solid. Now I'm going to glue this later, but before I leave it, I make sure that the eyes are sitting both parallel and square this way. So if you're new to fly tying, this is what's called a rotary vise. Very handy for a lot of things, but this is one of those little flies that it actually sort of makes more sense to actually turn the hook, because nearly all the materials are going to be pointing up, and this gives you a lot more area to tie the materials in. So traditionally this fly was done with calf tail, sort of calf tail. I'm currently using a different material here, but calf tail's perfectly okay. That was what the first one was done with. So I've just took out a small section, not much material. Take out the little bit of fluff at the bottom, and we're just looking to put a small amount in, going past the bend of the hook, maybe by about 4 or 5 millimeters. This material I chop off into my bin, which I keep below my desk, and then I'm going to set this material in right on top of the joint of the bead chain, and I'm just going to put a series of X's in there, and then one directly behind, and that's all it needs to hold it in place. So it's sort of commonplace now to put a little bit of sparkle into your flies, catch anglers. So with this long piece, I'll get 2 flies out of that, so I'm going to half this. So I've now got approximately 2 inches of this material, and I'm just going to introduce it in below the thread and bring it right up to the very top, and then bring them both back, and one we're going to tie more materials on here, so one turn is ample to hold that in place. So the next section of this fly is to put in 2 hackle points. This is well, I have this years. I believe this is a bronze grade Metz. The grizzle hackles, for some reason, are, for the particular grade, always slightly higher quality. I think it's just something to do with the bird. So you don't need to buy a really fantastic cape for this particular style. So what I'm doing here is I've got 2 hackle points and I'm lining these up so that they're curving away from each other. So in other words, that would be the top side of the cape facing back to back, and I'm just lining these points up, and then I'm going to measure them on the hook shank. So again, I want these just to go slightly to the bend of the hook, and then I'm going to, with my fingers, establish the tie-in point and remove a few fibers. Primary reason for doing this is that when I go to put it back in again, I know exactly where it needs to go to give me that length. Okay, so this is sometimes where people struggle with this particular fly. I've even seen boys on YouTube struggling. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting the 2 hackle points either side of the shank. Now, here's the trick that I've always used, and this goes for the Irish wet flies, etc., that we tie over here. If I don't want a material to move when I'm securing it, if I was to pull down tight with this first wrap and even the second wrap, it will try to spin, almost like deer hair. It will try to spin the fibers around. So what to do is to come over to the front, and then when I pull down, the tightness is going into the fibers, but it's not trying to rotate them. So now I've got 2 hackles, and providing I don't pull them, I've now got 2 hackles pointing in a V. Sorry, my phone's going a bit crazy tonight. So I've now got this particular section of the fly done. I haven't glued my eyes yet because I'm going to use a sort of a new material that's on the go. It's used by some trout anglers here, and this is this FNF. It's normally done as a worm, chewing gum type worm, but it comes in a whole raft of different colours. I'll just show you a few here. So we've got olives. Again, this is usually tied like a worm pattern, where it's just like almost put on the hook with nothing else. But I think it looks really good on this particular fly. The original pattern was done with chalene. More recently, people have started to dub the body, but I particularly like this material because it's a little bit sparkly and it's got that look about it. I would tie a pink one. That's the sort of traditional colour, but I've done those for my next trip. So this is a really good colour here. It's called cheese, of all things. So I'm going to take a 3-4 inch section of this, and then from the front of the hook, I'm just going to tie that in directly on top, and then work back until I've reached the point of where I tied in the feather points, and then I'm going to turn the hook upside down. So at this point, I'm going to, well, I'm going to use some super glue. Now, there's a load of different brands out in the market, but this is the one to use. Your materials don't go white. Well, it would be my personal preference. I think that's part of fly tying, is to share what other tyers have found to be successful. So I'm just coming around to the base of the hook, and then I'm going to lift all this material up and put one turn in behind, and that's primarily just to stop everything during a fishing session crushing down. And then I'm going to make a couple of X wraps through the eyes. Again, this is it's a simple fly to tie, apart from the little bit of work that you have to do with the hackle points. Because I put a little bit of super glue on the fly at this stage, these wraps, they'll all glue together and stick. So I've made like a little round ball between the eyes, and then I'm coming forward here, and then I'm going to tie down directly on top. Trim off the waist and just secure those little tip ends down. Now there's a load of different whip finish tools on the market. This one's, can't remember who did it, but it's been on the go this long time. I've used it for years. But what I will show you is, when it's not on the market, I took a standard shaving razor blade that I use, and I just cut it and put a small section of the razor blade in there with some UV glue. So from a safety point of view, especially if you're a young person tying flies, this razor blade is not really touchable with my finger. So if you're young, get one of your adults or whatever to glue this on. So when I'm finishing the fly, I do this whip finish, and there's loads of tutorials out there to do that. So when I do the whip finish on these flies, there's loads of space to put in a couple or three if you want. But when I'm done, I can just set the whip finish tool on here and cut that. So it means you don't have to pick your scissors up again. So the last thing I do with this fly is just give a little bit more security to it. You can use your standard Sally Hansen hard as nails type varnish, or you can use this sort of bone dry material, UV glue. This one's quite fine. So I've put a little bit on the whip finish, and then I'm putting a little bit just where those hackle points come out. So I'm going to cure the fly now with the UV torch. So before I do that, where I put this little bit on the hackle points, I just make sure that they're nicely V'd, and if one is being a little bit uncooperative, I will hold it to the angle I want and then cure it, and then cure all the head. Now again, this fly is a little bit untested, but this material rather is untested for salt water. But what I wanted to show you is I just wanted to quickly turn off my fly tying lamp and show the UV capabilities of this worm material. So that's the fly tied, folks. Very simple, very effective fly. I'll have this in the water in a week or so when I head to the Maldives, and I hope you've enjoyed that. I'll just give you a couple of front views here, and again with the bead chain or the dumbbell eyes, this fly will fish hook point up. I think we all know that gives a good hook rate for trout, but for saltwater fish there's lots of coral and snags, so that can help you save a few flies. I hope you enjoyed that short video. Thank you.